Hi, this is Langdon Morris, Senior Partner of Innovation Labs, and this is a video edition of our newsletter, Future Watch. In our August 2024 newsletter, we looked at the future of AI because we wanted to understand if new business models would emerge that would enable AI to become a mass market phenomenon and therefore justify the huge valuations for companies like NVIDIA, which recently became the most valuable corporation in the world precisely because they make and sell the chips that are used in AI systems. So the question is, will a business model emerge? And if so, what form will it take? Now, we received a tremendous response to the newsletter. Many people commented that they found it very interesting. And quite a few shared with us some of the work that they're doing in AI. One of them is Fred Brown, who's the CEO of Artemed, an AI company in the pharmaceutical space, as well as an advisor to GATC, which is also doing advanced work in AI. So when Fred shared with me what he was doing, I asked him if he wouldn't mind being interviewed, and he graciously agreed. So what follows is a very lightly edited version of our conversation held over Zoom last week, in which Fred describes the work that he's doing in multiple firms, the impact it's having directly on customers, and the ultimate impact it's likely to have on society. If you have any interest at all in AI, and you should, by the way, then I think you'll find our discussion very interesting. Just to recapitulate, so actually, first thing first is what I realize about you is that you've given up sleep for the rest of your life. So congratulations. Let us know how that works out. So you may remember that I sent out our regular newsletter, which I do every couple months, and the last one was about the future of AI. The main theme was, can AI actually find a business model that will sustain the volume of business that companies like NVIDIA are doing now? So I used the 2 by 2 matrix to explore how that would unfold.
Yes,
You responded.
I like that.
Yeah, so you responded that that was a very interesting way to look at it, and then you started reeling off a lot of the different applications of AI that you're involved with in your various organizations. And so my request back to you was, could we turn that into a case study and use that in the next newsletter? And voila, here we are.
Excellent, excellent. So, as I said, I've been working with doing AI-based predictive analytics for some time, and as you know, we got involved together looking at COVID, and as a result of that, I
Right.
got to know some of the very best people in this space who are more advanced than I was able to keep up with when I was a principal scientist at Cray Research. Or I was helping Cray Research, I should say. I didn't know what my title was actually. But at any rate, um, uh, what we're doing with GATC is we're trying to predict what the likelihood of success will be in a clinical trial. And so what's interesting is right now, if you look at all the clinical trials that are going on, there are a lot of them. And so what we did is we developed the model, we tested the model on probably, literally millions and millions of different submissions and trials and so on that have been conducted across about 15 or so uh, indication areas. So we're very strong in oncology, metabolic disorder. And so there are a whole bunch of areas that we are very quite good with. And we realize that there are reasons that are quite systematic for failure in clinical trial. And if you look at them, they basically are threefold. One is safety and toxicology. And as if you move from a preclinical environment to a clinical environment, usually most of the fall off for preclinical is due to safety. You don't want to inject these unsafe products into humans. Then you get into humans, and that's usually about 60% or so fail due to tox problems, about 30% due to efficacy problems, and about 10% due to commercial problems. As you move into clinical trials, it gets more balanced, about 50% or so. There's still some toxicology issues. There's kind of 30-40% toxicology issues in early stage. And as you get later, fewer and fewer of that occurs. And efficacy gets more and more important. And then finally, when you get into phase 3 trials, believe it or not, commercial becomes much more important. And we're starting to see that. So what we've done is we've taken all those data sets. We've looked at who gets through this is for the FDA and stringent regulators. Look at who's been successful and who hasn't. Look at all the drug characteristics. And we've got what's nice about AI is you're able to look at not just one or two or 10, like I was talking about. There's a commercial factor. There's a this. We're able to look at tens of thousands of factors simultaneously. No scientist, no matter what they are, you've got all these nice silos of I'm a toxicologist and I'm a PD guy or a pharmacodynamics guy and I'm a ADME person and I'm a cell guy and I'm a clinical guy and I'm an animal guy, and they all have these little columns and you talk to them all and you go, oh my gosh, this is pretty complicated. And there are all sorts of reasons for failure, but I can't keep them. No, not there's not one expert I can go to, right? And say
Yeah.
this is why it's going to pass or fail. You got to pull all those guys together simultaneously in a single environment. And so what we've done, that's exactly what we've done. We've actually simulated the input of all these incredibly important factors, including, data analysis and statisticians and, clinicians and the whole nine yards. And we've said, based on that, we can actually risk stratify the projects that are coming in for selection. And the risk stratification, what we've done with that is we've now gone to Lloyd's of London. And we've told Lloyd's of London, we think that for the first time, you can actually decide, you can actually play the equation of having funders saying we're thinking that this is going to fail, and having supporters saying we think it's going to succeed and create a market. And believe it or not, it's taken off like nobody's business, right? Because they're thousands, literally thousands of small companies who are all betting on a phase 1, 2 trial to move them to phase 3, that then allow them to have, to find new funding sources, strategic partners who are interested in moving the thing into commercial space. And they're great at science, but they're not so great at large scale clinical trials. And so what this does, this insurance product actually allows people to fund these trials, because the insurance company comes in and they say, we will charge you a premium. We think we understand the risks of this. You've come in with all of your IND submission work. That's the investigational new drug submission work. You're going to submit to, in this case, FDA, but it could also be to another stringent regulator, EMA, or even Japan. We see that data set. We've pushed it through our AI model. We score you with this ranking. Based on that ranking, the premium set for this insurance product should be this. We have a whole set of funders who want to come in and sponsor that premium, and take that other side of the equation. What we do is we're working with money center banks so that the premium does cost quite a bit, but it's a loan. And these money center banks will take on that loan at a low interest rate, certainly not 6, 7, 8%, not a 30, 40, 50% the venture capitalists will charge. You can fund your trial. As soon as it fails, you can stop paying the premium, stop paying the loan, and we'll pay you all. We'll pay you back because you're insured against failure. If you're successful, you pay our full premium, but then you have data sets that you can go to the markets with and say, great news, we are through phase 2B or 2B, and we now have dosing data. We now have human data. And what we're finding is we can probably fund about 4 times more volume using this funding mechanism than traditional funding mechanism.
Wow.
So we've got money center. And what's interesting is, of course, since we're in the financial community, a lot of these financial people have large numbers of pharmaceutical portfolio stock in their stock portfolios, and they're very interested in seeing those go through this funding process rather than to have to fund the full thing all by themselves. So we're getting a lot of traction on this AI model that originally you'd think would be applied to helping scientists, but instead are actually being applied to help risk stratify and fund in a controlled way a traditional financial instrument.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So can you talk a little bit about the AI model itself? Is it something that's super elaborate and took 100 statisticians a year and 2 to figure out, or is it something that I could have done on the back of an envelope with a calculus textbook?
No, it is more complicated than that. We actually used a pretty some of the most advanced staff at Cal Irvine, at Stanford, a few other places to actually help us with the analytics, and that actually took about 7 or 8 years to develop. So we were originally thinking about developing this and testing this with sufficient data sets, to help scientists. And then what happened was all the scientists says, these are great, but I need money. And so we said, we can help you with it. And so we had to pivot quickly. But it is quite a complex model, actually. It isn't something you're going to be able to pull off of, Git or GitHub or something like that. It took
Yeah.
a little bit more than that. And it does require some proprietary data sets as well to
Yeah,
train.
that's what I would have expected, but I wanted to check. So then the related question is, when you started 7 or 8 years ago, did you have AI in mind for this, or
Oh
you
yeah.
migrated to AI since AI has blossomed in the last couple of years?
What's interesting is we were always thinking about an AI expert system solution to this,
Okay.
with the blossoming of data set availability and complex algorithm work, as well as vector-based computing, those things came together, and we are a big user of NVIDIA chips and everything else you can imagine in the space.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So let me pivot a little bit, and just sort of explore a different direction. The last newsletter was trying to understand the future of the AI as an industry, and it
Yes.
postulates whether it'll find a mass market or whether it'll be what we might consider more of a B2B application set or a capability. And what you're describing is very advanced B2B, which, is being funded at a very high level and, supporting work at the tens of millions of dollars level. Do you see that the kind of work that you're doing will lead to mass market applications that, could be the iPhone or the iPad, or is everything that you're seeing suggesting that it's really going to be a B2B tool that, finance or science or medicine or material science, for example, would really be able to take advantage of, but would not lead to a mass market opportunity?
Oh no. There are going to be significant mass market opportunities in this space. Wow. So I talked a little bit about the B2B opportunity. What we're finding with GATC is that it is a B2B play, but what it is doing, it's enabling us to engage current uh, current infrastructure more appropriately, right? Before the infrastructure was designed to fund, in this case, insurance products that you could actually create risk to. Now we're using AI to use that to basically go far beyond what any individual insurer could possibly do, or any set of scientists could possibly do on their own, to provide new risk stratifications to simply engage the insurance company using traditional tools, techniques, infrastructure. And that's why it goes so fast, because we can just plug and play. Okay, that was inputs came from humans before. It's now coming in from AI, and well, we're still engaging in the same infrastructure, same funding mechanisms, and we have new players involved, obviously, because it now is engaging new players. I can give you an example of the same thing being true about a mass market. On the mass market side, I'm the CEO of a company called Artemed, and Artemed spun out of my work, that we were working on with COVID, and COVID was a big mass market problem, as
Yes,
you know.
about 8 billion, mass market of 8 billion.
Yeah, that was a big math market. And what we started to do was we started to apply some of our algorithms to new problems. And so we had large data sets in the healthcare space, and this includes proprietary data sets that were available to us through our COVID work that today aren't really available anymore because it opened and closed very quickly, that window. So the easiest stuff to get is claims data, and then you move up the cake, so to speak, to EHR data, electronic health record data. That moves up the record to pharmacy data, which is getting more and more valuable as you move up the record. Then you move into SDOH data, and this is very valuable because it's starting to pinpoint and link your social piece, which is, believe it or not, more largely responsible for your health overall than a lot of the medicine, sadly, but true. And then finally, we have genetic data, which is coming through. So now we've got a large cake of data that we can, and we have some of the most advanced algorithms in the world looking at health problems. And believe it or not, one of the biggest problems we've got is determining who's eligible for certain benefits in society. And it's a huge problem of access, right? So you think about mass market, and and there's a lot of, sadly, there's a lot of inequity in the way we deliver our healthcare, and a lot of it is because people just aren't aware of what they're actually eligible for. And so we're starting to work with a number of organizations to improve people's understanding of their ability to access benefits. And this includes things like transport, insurance, housing, food, and malnutrition. And if you think about it, when you go to the doctor today, and you then at the end of the day, they present you with a bill, and you look at it and you go, wow, it's a lot of money. It's causing a lot of stress in the system. What they don't know, and what they're not counseled on, is what programs they might be eligible for. And there's a number of programs that we've made so incredibly complicated, and you can't imagine how ridiculously complex these criteria are to receive these benefits. So one of my friends, for example, is chairman of the board of something called Make-A-Wish Foundation. And the problem is, she said, I don't know who's eligible for Make-A-Wish and who isn't. So I can't go around and say, gosh, do you guys have, a certain level of income? Do you have, I can't do that. So I have to rely on social workers who also are overwhelmed and not sure about all the different pieces and don't really want to get into that kind of intrusive questioning about whether you're eligible.
Right.
And so instead, what we've done is we've created an AI system that looks at, well, I'll just give you a number, 7,000 different criteria on the
Wow.
health side, about 5,000 different criteria on the SDOH side at the individual level. And that then counsels the social worker to say, great news, you're seeing Susie today. She's eligible for these 6 programs at the point of actually admittance to a hospital. And then they can slowly sort of introduce the idea during
Mhm.
that. And at discharge, you can say, and here are all the programs. You've had a chance to think about these. Here's your bill. Also, by the way, sadly, right? Here's how we could offset that. And it's really helping a lot of people
Is
right now. We're
is
about
that
2 million.
running in a system like Epic or?
Yeah. So normally when people say, oh yeah, we work with Epic, it means that you're facing a challenge of taking a hospital's IT staff 18 months and costing them $250,000 to integrate, right? You got to get all the data sets aligned and now normalized, and then you got to figure out the feeds and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Well, believe it or not, in a very unique way, we'll be one of the first 2 or 3 companies in the world with this. Epic has agreed, um, through our partner at the Mayo Clinic, that they will allow us to be an Epic build. The clamor for this program, for this product, was so high from social workers that the social workers said this should be available to everyone, and it shouldn't require. So let's build it once, and we're going to actually embed it in Epic, and it'll roll out uh, at the end of the year, December to January. And so
Wow.
all users of the Epic environment, that's 2,200 hospitals around the country, it'll actually be embedded in something called Compass Rose within Epic. If you're familiar with the Epic system, that's the one that social workers use. And Epic's been kind enough to allow the Mayo Clinic to offer this program.
Wow.
So we'll through the Mayo Clinic uh, to all their network. And right now, what's interesting is we'll save the hospitals as a result of this program. Um, Conservatively, and we'll save them tens of millions of dollars in year one with no investment on their part.
Which is
and we'll be able to direct.
money that they would have otherwise not recouped then, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Per hospital, yeah, tens of millions. And that just becomes a mass market issue because then you can start
Yeah.
to work with MasterCard and other operations to
Right.
start to funnel that funding into a single card to allow
Right.
everyone to benefit from
Right.
that card.
Right. Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. The way you described with the way you're working in Epic and Mayo Clinic, um, so that gives me an insight into the underlying question, which is how does this get to the mass market? And what you're
Right.
describing, I believe, is how AI can change how people are receiving services and will effectively enable a lot of new business models. And so AI is going to be embedded in all this,
Absolutely.
all these, wherever we interact with a complex system like healthcare or finance or, major purchases, probably real estate.
Oh, 100%. This is be an agent. You will have an agent that'll help you, help you with your payments for healthcare. You'll have an agent to help you kind of figure out your vacation time. And that's exactly the model that's going to occur. And and what's interesting is there's huge scale in these
Yeah,
agents
exactly.
because what happens, as you know, Len, is if we try to do this with a data set of 10 million, we'd fail because what we're looking at
Yeah.
is pattern recognition ultimately that it requires lots and lots of different inputs. Uh, and so the fact that we were able to train this, we had the top algorithms in the world, plus we were able to then train this on data sets of over 100 million people to then validate this on data sets like the Mayo Clinic and so on that you were sure were extensible. That's what's really required. So there's quite a bit of scale
Yep, yep.
involved here. But the idea again is let's not reinvent something and make something new for AI to travel through. Let's simply enable through AI a better solution to what we already have in place. And I think that you'll see, initially a lot of opportunity in that space until we finally are big enough and to figure out this is where we can use current infrastructure. This is where we need a new infrastructure. And right now, I'm just trying to leverage current infrastructure to make it better rather than to try to develop something new before I know much about the topic.
We only have a few more minutes. I want to just
Yes.
go on to one uh, theme area of many that we could productively explore. And that is the issue of privacy and security, because you're now accessing, basically you can know anything about anybody, which is really interesting and great
Or
for
invent
vendor
anything about
recognition.
anybody. Yeah.
It's scary as hell.
It is, yes. So this is very important, actually, and it's something we're worried about in a couple different directions. And there are a couple of areas that we're quite concerned about. Um, One is bias. So in the GATC example I gave you, if you're
Mhm.
constantly simply funding projects that have been already screened by in the pharmaceutical industry by, say, Citibank or Chase, you're going to have a natural bias in the data set, and you'll learn about that bias. And when you start to put unbiased data sets into this equation, you're not going to get a good answer. And this is a big challenge. So that's the question about bias that occurs because these systems do learn over time is a big one because these you start with a small snowball, and if you continue in the same direction, that snowball can get really big and really affect very badly with unintended consequence populations that have either been included or excluded,
Right,
preferentially in your system.
right.
In healthcare, there's a big issue about security, and we have currently something, as you know, called HIPAA.
Yeah.
That's going to be insufficient. You know, the problem is that people are unaware, especially the mass market groups, are unaware that when they say it's fine that you use my health data, they'll sign off and click the OK accept without really thinking that through. And this is a real big problem, and we're going to have to, I think, address it with separate legislation and revised legislation and support to make sure that that data really does remain confidential and that people can access it, but they also have more protections. Europe may go a little bit too far in their General Data Protection Act. but we need something more in the United States, or people will. I'm concerned that there'll be the mass market could be hurt because there'll be individuals who have been adversely affected, and that'll hurt everybody, frankly.
Mhm.
So we are looking at that. Our systems are all what they call high trust, which is a slightly higher level that the industries agreed to, use in transmission of health data, especially among insurers. And so we are at that level for all of our systems, but we need something even more, from what I can tell. The direction. What's interesting is you can see where it's going. And right now, it's at a small enough scale that you don't hear the issues. The
Mhm.
problem is when you hit a critical mass, it will become very, very apparent, and then the risk is that it snaps back and really does everyone a disservice. So
We are literally running out of time, and you've
I
been
yes.
very generous
What
with
else?
your time. Well, I mean, we could talk for another couple of hours, I think. But given that you're
I'm
running all those companies and not getting any sleep, I'm not asking for that kind of time commitment from you. Thank you so much for your time.
been a pleasure as always, and
Pleasure.
thank you so much for all the support in the past and the books, and I love it. It's super stuff you're doing, and I'm happy to help out any way I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch soon.
Pleasure.